What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and welcome to the chaos. This is episode 4 of the local experience. This time it's going to be Genesys, which is why you can see this chaos in front of you. Now, don't worry, I know that, links are not legal. These are just cards that I've picked up recently that are just all over the place at the moment. These are because my friend, so a little bit of a backstory, I've managed to persuade two of my friends to come and try out Genesys. In order to do so, I have to build decks for them. Initially, my first friend wanted to play Gladiator Beasts, which is why these are out of the way, because obviously they can't use these from the Gladiator Beasts. Ultimately, I was missing a couple of core pieces, so I couldn't do it. Option number, the other option, was Eldritch. So Eldritch is over here, built, done, dusted, out of the way. This is Black Rose. Just going to move that up and out of the way. So that's one deck done. That's one friend done, dusted, out of the way. The second one that I'm currently working on is Zombies. That's the side deck. No. There you go, Zombies. Is Zombies for my friend. So funnily enough, both my friends want to play Zombies style decks. One more control, one a little bit more aggressive. And then for myself, I'm really looking forward to play Exosisters. So that's what I want to try out, because Exosisters got all the new support. The only other thing that I was highly considering for the first Genesys event would have been Charmers, Spirit Charmers, because I think they could be pretty cool. I've got my light, I've got my dark, so I'm going to add those to the list, and I think that'd be kind of cool to play around with. These are just new additions, so Forbidden Crowns. Yes, I bought I bit the bullet. Picked up Forbidden Crowns, only because not only does it complete my Forbidden set, so I've got Lances, Crowns, Droplets, and Chalices, it fits in the Dark Lord lore. I love the artwork on it. I think the artwork's absolutely amazing. See if I can get it a little bit closer to the camera for you. And then ultimately, as I was watching the price kind of come down a little bit, so shout out to Grime Games. They had two, and they did me a good deal on a pair of them, and I was like, ah. The worst thing is when someone does you a deal on two, absolutely fine, nothing against them, as you're like, oh, you've done me a deal, I really appreciate it. But then it makes you go, crap, now I've got to find the third within that same kind of deal-esque bracket. Luckily, I was able to do so, and I probably bit the bullet a little bit earlier than other people, but it was a kind of at a price point. I was like, at the end of the day, if I'm going to spend X amount on just normal secrets, I might, and then upgrade them in the future, I might as well just jump right in and get them then and there. Anyway, I digress. So Exosisters are nearly ready, and the reason I want to play Exosisters is because I bought 7th Tachyons. I know, I buckled and bought them. I was like, it's either going to get reprinted in the Maze of Muertos, or it'll be reprinted in Rarity Collection 5. It's probably going to be in Rarity Collection 5, but I was like, you know what? I really want to play the new Exosisters. My first tournament I could play Exosisters at is Genesys, so I kind of need to make it as good as I can for Genesys. So I decided to go down that route. This is a pile of Genesys related cards, like staple cards. You can put in your side deck, your main deck, you name it. And now I'm trying to put them together. This is currently my Exosister side. Dark Rulers, Defissures, Cosmic Sight, these are all 0 points. How is this 0 points? It's beyond me. The main deck, the benefit of being able to play Exosisters now is you can play Dimension Shifter, because he's only 10 points apiece. So yeah, I'm just basically got to sleeve these up. I'm waiting for my friend to confirm, because there's a couple of cards I'm missing from their zombie list that they wanted to put together. And then I've just got to sleeve this up. And now I'm in this weird position of, do I try and find these particular sleeves, or do I just re-sleeve everything? Which I'm probably going to re-sleeve everything. This is what happens when loads of different decks bounce into different decks as well. So that is the current plan for today's Genesys event. So as I mentioned, it's the first Genesys event of that the locals is doing, and it's also a special event, because the event of what's going on is Bliss, which is a distributor here in the UK, are doing this this special promotion, which basically is, if you go to your events that are holding Genesys, your locals that are holding Genesys, not only will you get OTS packs later on down the line, more OTS packs, but you also get additional prize walls tickets for nationals, which is always quite a big thing, because the prize wall is quite a cool thing for public events, and what it kind of gives you is it gives you the ability to win. If you didn't get a chance to win last season's map, for example, for regional or OTS championship, and you really wanted it, like this Sky Striker one, for example, you can do. Like that's how you can do it. You can win it through there. Now, to do that, you usually enter like an 8-man pod or an 8-person pod, and the winner of that will get enough tokens or enough tickets to get a map. Whereas with this scheme, I think you get one. I think it's one. I think every event you go to is an extra single ticket. It might be more than one ticket. But at the end of the day, I think you can get like a maximum of 4. I could be completely wrong on this. But the idea is just extra tickets. My dog's quite noisy over in the background, so apologies for that one. Hopefully the microphone that I'm wearing kind of mitigates that sound as well. But yeah, I think it's a really good scheme. They did it last year, but it wasn't, from what I could tell, it wasn't widely available. They're doing it for Genesys at this moment in time, but then they're also going to roll it out to Advanced. And I think it is Genesys for the month of February and the month of March. And then April and May will be Advanced. And then Nationals is in June. So it kind of runs straight up to June, which is really, really kind of cool. Anyway, so now I'm just basically trying to make sure I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. So I've got 40 KMC white sleeves. So I need to find another 15 more if I want to use them on my Exo-Sister deck. And it's basically just, this is what happens when you have multiple decks. Not a good idea. You just have sleeves everywhere. And the irony is, like, some of the sleeves just don't even get used because I can't play every single deck at locals every single week. So yeah, I'm going to sleeve these up. I don't think you need to sit here and watch me sleeve a deck up. I think that's like kind of very, 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 very tedious, very, very boring for your entertainment value, I guess. So what I'll do is I'll try and record some duels. We'll see how it goes, and then give you a breakdown of how I found my first Genesys event. So hopefully you guys are going to your Genesys events. If you didn't know about the Genesys scheme, now that you do, make sure you ask your locals. They should also appear on Neuron as well. So if you put in like your local store, it should pop up with like what events they're running. So it'll be like, oh, we're running a Genesys event at this point and da 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 da. So that's how you can kind of get involved with these. Even if you're not like, this is what I'm saying. So I've got 2 friends coming back to play Genesys. It is quite appealing to people that have left the game or people that are coming back into the game. And I think that's a really, really big plus for it. And I think what scares most players off or makes most players not want to jump into it yet is because they feel that it's going to be a massive like building difference, which it is a massive building difference, but it's not like, oh, I need to have a £400 deck to be my most competitive deck, and then I need another £100 for a Genesys deck. That's kind of not how it is if you do it correctly. Like, there's a lot of cheap Genesys decks. Like, Exo-Sisters is a little bit expensive right now, but even then, I sold a spare core for like £55, okay? So £55 for an Exo-Sister deck that you then upgrade with some of the new stuff, which would be like another £10. So like £65 gets you a full Genesys deck that you can utilize right out of the gates. You've got the Charmers that I think could be pretty fun as well. And what it does is it gives decks that like they're not to the pace of Modern. And what I mean by that is like Modern, when you're like, oh, I've got one monster on the field, I turn it into a Link monster, and then I do like full card combo. This kind of takes it back a little bit, which I quite like. There are going to be decks that can kind of bridge over both. So, for example, the Radiant Typhoons are actually good in Modern and in Genesys right now. Draco Tail were kind of the same as well. But the idea is that you can kind of, if you build correctly, depending on what your local environment is like I'm expecting, now this is before going to our local environment, right? I think at this moment in time, there's like 8 players scheduled to turn up. I don't expect it to be massive right now. We're trying to drum up the interest. And I think ultimately, like I said, it's people not really 100% set on Genesys as of yet. I think it's going to be like a really, really fun event. And I think it's obviously starting out as well. It's kind of like when Speed Duel started out, Master Duel and everything else like that. It takes a bit of time for the word of mouth to spread and for stuff to kind of be like, oh, okay, I'll give it a go. And getting 2 returning players is pretty awesome as well. So I'm really happy about that. But the idea is that I expect there will be a lot of creativity. Like, there's a player that always plays Yugioh. I highly expect they'll be playing Yugioh. There is someone that was main decking Archmages last locals, which was post Burst Protocol. I expect they will probably turn up with Archmages ready for Genesys, which I don't mind. I think that's going to be really, really kind of cool. That was another deck I was highly tempted to play. So I expect there'll be Archmages. They will be maybe Yugioh. Like, this person plays Yugioh religiously. It's Yugioh or Traptrix, which would be very interesting playing Traptrix without Sarah, but you never know. There is another player that played Crystal Beast, Heroes, and Yugioh. So whether the Yugioh players come together and they find a way to adapt the deck for Genesys would be really kind of cool. They might play something completely different. But yeah, it's usually a 100 point. It's a gap. It's not a gap, really, is it? It's usually locals are set on 100 points. Maybe the first Genesys event should probably be like 150 to kind of let people get used to it. But even then, I don't think that's an absolute necessity. I feel that you can very easily build decks within 100 and you just need to make certain sacrifices. So, for example, in Exo Sisters, because everything has so many high points, I had to sacrifice the Ohime, or is it the Sakura? Yeah, I've had to sacrifice playing 2 of this so that I could play. I've basically replaced 2 of it and I'm playing like maxing out on the spirits. Whether that works or not, I don't know. We'll soon see. I'll do like a full profile at the end of the video as well. I'll just like lay out the cards so you can kind of see what I used. But basically the way I saw it was the Hime was a 7th Tachyon replacement in Modern. So now that I've got the 7th Tachyons, that kind of bridges that bit of a gap and lets you play it that way. So we'll see how this goes. We're going to test this out. I don't think any of these... Those are. That's cool. I don't think any of these are going to be absolutely insane, but it's going to be interesting. Let me just double check. So you can also check... let me just have a look. You can also check on Neuron, which is what I'm doing now. You're checking Neuron for what your point allocations are. That's where you can build a deck as well. I think that's also another thing that kind of made it a little bit... difficult to fully understand is the accessibility of where do you go to build your deck. So what did I cut? Oh, I have to cut a packs as well. Ugh. I cut a packs and 2 Ohimes and I've got 4 points left to play with. Let me just remember that I've cut 2 packs. 1, 2. Yeah, I've got to cut packs out. No! Packs is so important. I've still got to find a couple of cards to put into this one. We'll probably end up being Skullmeister, question mark. I'll have a look and put that together. So, again, it's the first Genesys Locals. It's going to be something that is going to be a learning experience, but I think it's ultimately going to be quite fun. I love the idea that we're not going to be able to spam Link monsters. I love the idea that it really does open up the creativity on deck building as well, because you can't just go, here's this same deck that's been dominating the entire time. I'm going to play the exact same list. Whereas it kind of caps a little bit Radiant Typhoons, for example. Like, Radiant Typhoons can't play their brand new Link 2. So there are decks that will kind of shift around a little bit. And that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm excited about. So, anyway, I babbled on long enough on this one. We'll get some duel highlights going for you. I'll give you some feedback as well. And then we'll come back here to this, hopefully a much tidier chaos. And then kind of review how the first Genesys event went. So, be back in a second. So jumping straight into duel number 1. So this is against Yugioh. Basically just showing what's happening here is that Yugioh now lean onto the Eternal Favourite to get, and Super Polymerization to be fair, to get them into the Loving Defender forever. One big thing for Yugioh is that they can't really play Phantom, which is a bit of a detriment, I guess. Now what's happened here is I activated Returnia, targeted Spirit of Yugioh on the field, banished the Spirit of Yugioh, Eternal Favourite was chained to Fusion Summon, and off it kind of went. This is why Exorcists are kind of good, is they have a lot of cards that can bait out interactions. So now that I don't need to worry about Loving Defender, there's only one set card that I need to be a little bit cautious of, I can start to build a field. So you see 7th Tachyon working me into Martha there, Martha into Ellis, and then overlay both of these, and then it's kind of like how far do you want to push. Previously, so this was following a previous turn where I already had access to cards like Magnifica on the field, so I was able to slowly bait out and pick the cards apart without really committing too much. And that's what makes it work so well, is you can either commit your Martha or you can commit your normal summon if you have the extenders available to you. The only thing you've got to be very cautious of with Exosisters is making sure you don't run out of names, and kind of go from there. So on this one, I think I ran out of Michaelis's. I think I didn't have any Michaelis's left. So we're going to go into Caspatel, and the reason we go Caspatel is that I haven't used my normal summon yet. So we get to go into Stella, and what I found was a little bit more accessible as well is that Stella into Sophia to get that random draw is so good. Like I use that quite a lot. Obviously in this scenario I didn't need to. I just go straight into the Carmel. And once you put yourselves into a simplified game state like this, the Carmel, being able to replace a spell or trap and also being able to like recycle either Vardis or Returnia to be your most aggressive option. But then also, like what I now have is I can now very simply, during my opponent's turn, I can use Returnia because I only control Exosisters to target a card and banish it. And then because I have an Xyz this turn, it then lets me Xyz. So I can use the Carmel plus the Caspatel and go into Magnifica. And then Magnifica then gives me another banish. And then it can tag itself out for either a Carmel, which will recycle a Vardis or a Returnia, or a Caspatel. So you can kind of see that that kind of goes to it, is they've used the discard effect in order to utilize the opening of the Spirit Gates, with the idea is to get back like a spell or trap that could be utilized for it. Or like bring back Samsara Lotus, and we're just going to chain Returnia, target the Spirit Gate to banish it. And then I can choose to Xyz if I need to, which is exactly what's going to happen here. So we would go into Magnificat, and then my opponent scoops it up. So this is round number 2. This is against Eldritch. This is just to show like the control aspect. So they've got Lord of the Heavenly Prisons, which is quite a bit of a boss monster in the sense of this, because 3,000 defense, 2 set cards, and like it's probably a really bad matchup for Eldritch for the pure fact like I play DD Crows, but I also like to banish all their stuff. So like worrying about destruction isn't that big of an issue. But then also trying to worry about like I don't need to worry about the Lord protection destruction. I just make Michaelis. Michaelis banishes Lord, and then we're just going to swing in with Carmel, swing in with Michaelis. I could very easily make Magnifica, but honestly, I don't see the need to do that. And this kind of does the job because you've got Returnia. So whatever they have set along those spell and trap zones, I can either turn one, change one, and do what you need to. Now, this is round number 3 against Yugioh, and what I wanted to show here is that the Yugioh player is playing a really kind of cool option here, is that they're using Mature Chronicle to banish Dotscaper from the deck, and they make the Assembled Nightingale, which basically has the ability to return a special summon monster on the field. And on the flip side of this is going to show you the resilience of Exosisters. So my normal summon was Stella. My special summon off of the back of Stella is Sophia to get me a draw. And then, like, I haven't used Martha. So all I need to do now is to go into Michaelis. It now puts my opponent in a position where it's like, right, okay, well, they need to use the Assemble Robin. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But then I just chain the Michaelis. The Michaelis banishes the Assemble Robin. So I get a trade 1-for-1. And I still haven't used any of the Spirit extra normal summons. And I haven't used Martha. So I don't need to worry about Ash Blossom. I don't need to worry about Droll. So as long as I have a route to Martha, it's like, okay, cool. Martha then gets me Carmel, or I can get into a Magnifica, or a Michaelis, sorry. And then if I get into the Michaelis, as they've returned it and I haven't used Michaelis' effect to search, I still have access to that as well. It's now kind of considering ways to pick off those spells and traps, because they've got a pretty good spell and trap setup. They've got Mature Chronicle, they've got Nightmare Pain, and then they've got Spirit Gates. All 3 of those can just recycle a bit of decent resource. So we're going to go for the 7th Ascended. 7th Ascended adds the 7th Tachyon. We activate the 7th Tachyon, revealing number 104 to get us the Martha, and then we need to put a card back from our hand to the top of the deck, which is absolutely fine because you're just going to reveal the Martha anyway. And then shuffle your deck up, so it doesn't matter what you put on the top of the deck. So this gets your Ellis back. It's also quite a nice option to put Ellis back if that's the only card you have in the hand. And this is going to show you how you can kind of build up a little bit more. And then I'll show you some of the plays that I make afterwards. So the option is we can go into Michaelis. Doesn't really do a huge amount in the sense like, yes, we can search out a card. But because we've got a monster with 800 attack and defense, we summon down the Hime. My opponent reminds me that I can't search Sakitama. Like I just naturally assume that Sakitama has 800, which it doesn't. but you can pretty much search whatever you want. I can search an Ellis. I go for a Martha for a follow-up because I think I already have an Ellis in the hand. And this is where I can just get 2 rank 4s. The only thing that I need to remember is that Carmel needs 2 Exo Sisters specifically. So you need to be a little bit careful on that one. And what I was kind of trying to worry about is if my opponent had Nibiru. But I mean, if they had Nibiru, they probably would drop it here. And I'm like, okay, cool, that happens. Or they drop it here. So we overlay both of these. We go into the Carmel. Then we overlay the other 2 and we go into a Michaelis. Michaelis then detaches to search. And this is where I can set up a Vardis and a Returnia if I wanted to. So we go for the Vardis. And then just checking what else we have. I don't think there's anything more engraved or banished or anything like that. So the Carmel would reset during the end phase. The only other thing that I need to worry about is a Spirit of Yugioh. Because if a Spirit of Yugioh hits the field, because Nightmare Pain's already face up, I'm going to be taking a decent chunk of damage. Yes, of course, I can use Carmel's effect to change it, which would be quite important to do so. So we attack with Carmel, attack with Michaelis, and then we move to the end phase. We set a card, and then obviously in the end phase, utilize Carmel to set Returnia. So there should be a Vardis and a Returnia back there. Both of those being very, very disruptive because as soon as you activate Opening Spirit Gates, it hits with a Returnia. Opening the Piri map, and I'm like, okay, well, what could you possibly go into here? Yes, I could use the Carmel, and the only reason I would use Carmel is Carmel, I believe, and I could be wrong on this one, but I'm pretty sure when I read Carmel, it doesn't include spell effect. I'm pretty sure it's like spell activation, unless I'm so wrong. When your opponent activates a monster effect or a normal spell or trap card. Yeah, so it doesn't include the spell or trap card effects, so which means basically Carmel can't do the Opening Spirit Gates. So I use Carmel on the Piri map, which means my opponent doesn't have anything, and then kind of just build off from there. And what I've done is I've jumped ahead a little bit just to show you the other combo that they're playing, which I think is really cool. So it's normal summon down Tour Guide. Tour Guide, so you saw the Ensemble Robin play in the first one. This one is Tour Guide, normal summon, special summon out Fiendish Rhino. And this is the benefit of Genesys, so you don't need to worry about like Ash, Imperm, maybe Vela, but not the worst. Goes into Dante, classic Dante. Dante's going to mill 3. And then, so we hit a Tour Guide, the Mutiny in the Sky, and the Samsara D Lotus. Also then gets to trigger the Fiendish Rhino. And this is where it gets quite important, is the Fiendish Rhino, like, whatever's been milled, all they need to do, and I spoke to them after this, is they need to mill a Dark Fiend, which is pretty high doable in the deck. But the benefit of milling the Mutiny in the Sky is the Mutiny in the Sky can then be added back to the hand. So you send Gruesome Grave Squirmer, which means they've got 2 ways of bringing cards back from the grave. And this is where it's really, really important because they've sent a card from deck to grave. So we're going to go Chainlink 1, Betrayal, to make them banish the Grave Squirmer, which they've just sent. And then we're going to go Chainlink 2, Vardis. Vardis is then going to summon 2 Exo Sisters. And in doing so, you resolve the chain. So the 2 Exo Sisters are on the field. You resolve Betrayal. They have to banish the Grave Squirmer. The 2 Exo Sisters see that that banish has happened and that my opponent has done it. So then both the Exo Sister monsters then like exes themselves into different. So I go for an Ellis and I go for a Stella. I think I got rid of Irene and Sophia very early on. So then we get to overlay, like exes both of these. So you go into a Michaelis. Michaelis now has, or that Michaelis now has its quick effect to banish a card, which is really important. And then the Ellis goes into, I go into the Sophiel, because the Sophiel basically says no card effects can be activated in the graveyard, which means Mutiny in the Sky can't be used. It means, and then like all that leaves my opponent with is Dante, 1 card in the hand, and Opening Spirit Gates. So they could either go battle phase and try and force the Michaelis, which again would be the exact same outcome. The only difference is they'll be able to keep that card in their hand. Because I'm like, the reason I'm making the Michaelis is to deal with the Opening Spirit Gates. Like, to me, there's no reason not to deal with the Opening Spirit Gates. So they either go battle phase to try and out the Michaelis. The Michaelis responds, gets rid of the Opening Spirit Gates, or they do as they play here. They use the Opening Spirit Gates, which was a Spirit of Yugioh, to be fair. They probably could have held the Spirit of Yugioh, which I don't think would have made much of a difference. Because so if you hold back the Spirit of Yugioh, what happens here is Dante attacks, destroys the Michaelis. That's fine. Michaelis goes. Then in back to my turn, all I need to do is make another Carmel, and then the Carmel checks the Spirit of Yugioh. So it was a really, really good duel. A lot of, like, a really good event, actually, to be fair, but I'll pick that back up in a minute. Really good duel, bit of fun. I like the Ensemble Robin involvement. I like the Dante involvement, and I think that's kind of like the difference with what Genesys does, is it lets you be a little bit more creative. Anyway, we're going to go back to the lab, as my dog certainly agrees, and I'll give you a bit more of a rundown and a review. So we'll be back in a second. Okay, so we're back from our very first Genesys event, and it's actually a huge amount of fun. I really did enjoy it, and I'll explain as I go through this section of the video what made it feel quite fun. So at the event, there was only 8 players turn up, which is kind of what I expected for the first Genesys event, because a lot of people are still a little bit unfamiliar with it, but also not completely kind of like lent in on it as of yet. But what I did have is I had 2 friends come back to the game. I built them zombies and Eldritch. Obviously, what I did say to them is, if they want to come back again, give me a bit more notice, and we could build them something that's really gonna like relate to them. But it was actually really, really fun, and it was great to have them both back. So it was an 8-person locals. There were Spriggans, which is like really cool to see. There was 2 Exo Sisters, one of them being myself. There was 2 Yubel players. There was a Cool Tune player, and then there was also zombies, Eldritch. And I think that's the 8. So 2 Exo Sisters, 2 Yubel, Eldritch, zombies, Cool Tunes, and Spriggans. My matches were Yubel, Eldritch, and then Yubel. So I probably should have expected the Yubel, because they're both the local Yubel players, and some of them had some really kind of cool techniques of what they wanted to change. But yeah, I went with Exo Sisters, and I had a huge amount of fun with them. There's a couple of things I'll address as I go through the list. I believe this list, I ended up getting down to something like 96 points, so I had a little bit of point flexibility, and I'll talk you through from that one, and I was able to win the event. I went Exo, like I said, I think in the final round was against Yubel, and yeah, there's a card in here that won me that duel, like there's no doubt about that. So let me blitz through the list. I'll show you what we've got, and I'll talk about what we kind of changed. So from the extra, and apologies, it's a little bit all over the place because I haven't fully rearranged it, but just for the side deck, you got Cosmic Cyclone, 0 points. Dimension Fisher, 0 points. Like, how this card is 0 points, I don't know. So you play 3 of those, 3 Cosmic Cyclone. I went with the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode, and the reason I went with this, and I'm actually half tempted to put in, maybe you put in the Winged Dragon of Ra. And the reason I say that is because you can't play Kaijus, and you can't play Lava Golem. So this is the only way you can do to like out a field. I never put this card in, never used it, never needed to. But it's like the only one you can play that is like this Kaiju-esque effect that lets you tribute off your opponent's monsters and move through. The other thing as well is because there's no like links in Genesys, your opponent can't link it off. They can't really do a lot with this. They can like... So it does make it a little bit awkward. Like in Modern, if you Ra Sphere Mode your opponent, maybe they have ways to utilise it. Whereas now, I don't think they actually do. 3 Lost Wins. This is just like a last minute, 0 point, add in, make going first a little bit stronger. And then 3 Dark Rule No More. Pretty standard, all of those at 0 points. There's no really kind of like huge implications on that one. Moving into the Exo Sisters, of course you play 3 Martha. Pretty standard on that one. I'll save the points till later on. 3 Elise, 3 Betrayal. I put in 2 Vardis, once I get to them. 1 Irene, Aritama, I'll leave that for later, and then there's that. 7th Tachyon, I played the 7th Tachyon package. The reason I played the 7th Tachyon package is for the pure fact that Pax is 10 points, and so is the Hime. Hime is 5 points. So I was like, okay, well, I can't afford to play Dimension Shifter, Fualos, and like Pax and everything else, because Michaelis in the extra is also 10 points. So I was like, right, what could I honestly sacrifice in order to play? And the fact of the matter is, Pax and Hime are like your consistency pieces, in my opinion. They're consistency pieces, like they lead you to Martha. I was like, what else leads you to Martha? Well, the 7th Tachyon package. And in the place of 2 Himes and 1 Pax, I can play 3 7th Tachyon and 1 Ascended for 0 points, and that pretty much gets me the same kind of outgo. So that's kind of what I wanted to try and change and sacrifice. The one thing, and I'll show you the full list at the end, that'll probably be the nicest way of doing it. The one thing I need to say is, this card should not be 10 points. It needs to be so much more. Now I get it, its usage in Genesys is for a rogue deck. But then everything in Genesys should relatively be a rogue deck. And this card will single-handedly win you a duel. And the worst thing about this card is there is a combo that you can do which lets you loop the Dimension Shifter. And what you do is you activate the Dimension Shifter and then you make the Carmel. And what happens is when your opponent activates something, you use Carmel, you detach both of the materials, they both get banished, and then the effect your opponent's just activated becomes they add a card from our graveyard back to the hand. So you give them no choice and no option but to go, okay, add the Dimension Shifter back. And you go, okay, cool. Pass the turn, Dimension Shifter wears off, Dimension Shifter again. Like, that's quite bad. Like, I'm playing the deck, and I know that that's kind of like an issue. That's something that needs to be addressed. So I would actually be really, really happy if Dimension Shifter went up in points, because if Dimension Shifter went up, even by 5 points, probably I want it a little bit more just to be like, you can't play it. But if Dimension Shifter went up to like 25 points, I'm like, right, cool. 3 Dimension Shifters come out of the deck, the 2 Ohimes go back in the deck, plus the packs. And then that would put in a lot of work. I'm not going to go, I'm going to lay this all out just for you, because like I said, it's a bit of a mess right now. So I apologise. So we've got 3 Marthas, pretty standard on that one, wherever they may be, in chunks. So 3 Marthas, you play 3 Elises, I play 2 Stellars. A lot of people, like the other Exorcista player was only playing the 1 Stellar. I actually quite like playing it at 2. I think 2 is absolutely fine. 1 Sophia and then the 1 Irene. This ratio I think is absolutely fine. I've got no issue with these ratios. And in place of the Himes, I was on 3 Sakitamas and 3 Aratamas. So these were all 0 points, which is why it kind of made it a little bit more feasible to put them together. And then the 1 Hime. The idea was that if I start with the Aratama, I lead myself into the Hime, Hime can then lead me into the Martha and go from there. And the one thing that I think this deck is going to have as a big benefit in Genesys is that Ash and Droll are so costly to play. And I actually spoke to a lot of players that were playing in the Genesys, and just the feeling of not needing to, like, of course you can worry about Ash Blossom a little bit, but of all these core cards, so for example, the Yubel player, for them to be able to activate Samsara D Lotus's effect, and the worst thing they need to worry about is a Fulos. But for not worry about an Ash Blossom, it's like that, so amazing moment. So that was really, really kind of fun. Which is really good as well. To be able to go Martha as well. And you don't need to really worry about an infinite impermanence because they're a little bit costly. Like the only thing you need to worry about is a Nibiru. And I was finding myself more times than not, like just leaving Carmel on the field in case they did have a Nibiru. And if they have a Nibiru, you just go, cool, Carmel, negate it, and then you overlay the Carmel and the other XZs that you still have on the field and you make your Magnifica. Like I never found that there was a way where I was like, I have to like not leave the Carmel on the field. So Carmel was an amazing addition to the deck. Carrying on with the rest of this, so I played the 1 Carpe Diem and the Almond. You don't need to play these cards. I'm going to get rid of these cards. I don't know what I'm going to put them in for, but I'm going to get rid of them. I was on 2 packs. This was just the sacrifice that I made in order to kind of free up some points. 3 Betrayal, like this card's nuts. The fact it's just like if any card is sent to your like any monster is sent to your opponent's graveyard, do something like is really, really good. Because then there are times where, and I did do this once or twice, where you go, your opponent sent something and you went, okay, cool. Chain Link 1 Betrayal to make them banish it. Chain Link 2 Vardis to summon, and the Vardis would then summon out 2 Exo-Sisters. They would then resolve the Betrayal, moving a card, and then both the Exo-Sisters would go, cool, XYZs. So it's really good. 1 Returnia, I'm quite happy with 1 for the pure fact that Carmel recycles it from wherever you put it. So you don't need to be playing more of this. The reason I play more Vardis is it's like, well, if I hard open up a Vardis, that's fine. And then I've got the Returnia that I set off of the Carmel. And if I see the Returnia, I set the Vardis. So I could probably, if I end up cutting the Almond and the Carpe Diem, I could bump them to the side very easily. I'd either put 2 side deck cards in the main deck, or I can add in another Returnia. I would be quite happy with that. 7th Tachyon package. Unless you are desperate to play this deck this way before Rarity Collection 5, I have a very, very strong feeling that this will be in Rarity Collection 5. Pick up the 7th Ascension. Everyone should have this, but I would be amazed if this card is not in Rarity Collection 5. Just because it's such a core component for XZ's decks in Genesys, that I think it's mad not to reprint this card. I was able to pick mine up at like a price that I felt was comfortable for me to play because I really want to play Exo Sisters, and I'm highly, highly tempted to take this deck to the UK Open and play the Genesys event on the Sunday with this deck because I think it's just a really cool deck. And then for my hand interactions, so DD Crow. I don't think DD Crow is that big of an issue against us, but it's very good against like Eldritch and everything. 3 full loss, like at 7 points apiece, I'm actually quite happy just playing the full loss. It just lets you kind of compress your opponent's decks if they want to go wild. And then 3 Dimension Shifter. Like, there is no question that this card is degenerate. Like, it's not a healthy card. I think everyone, I don't think there's a single person that says it's a healthy card. But it's kind of one of them ones where you might consider it as a necessary evil. But I don't know, it's weird. Like, road decks, it's amazing. Like, it's absolutely amazing. And it does really well against the meta. Like, if Dracotail is still at the top end of the tables, if Radiance as well are in the top end of the tables with this kind of format, then it deserves its place. But if you're going to a local environment, which is something I might try out the next Genesys event, is that I'm going to my local environment, maybe I don't need to play 3 Dimension Shifter, maybe that's where I can start to test and play like the 3rd packs and the 2 Himes and go from there. For the extra deck, 2 Carmel, I think 2 is fine. I was semi-tempted for a 3rd just because of the space and it's 0 points, but didn't need to. 1 Jabrain, I'm absolutely happy with this one. 2 Caspatel, never actually made Caspatel. The one that I did make was the 2 Sophiel. So I made one of this, and the reason for this one is that if it's XE summoned using an Exosystem monstrous material, neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard. So that's a mandatory effect when it's XE summoned, and I actually did this during my opponent's turn off of Vardis, turning one of my monsters into it, and the reason that's so good is it locks out all graveyard effects. So it's really good against Dracotail, but in like the Yubel matchup, they were playing like Mutiny in the Sky and everything, and it just like shut them down, so quite happy with that one. And then 10 points apiece. Ugh. 2 Michaelis. This is probably another card, actually. This is a card that I'd actually probably consider bumping up to 3 straight away. So I take out the 3 Dimension Shifter, right? That gives me 30 points. Actually, that covers everything. So the 3 Dimension Shifter would leave me 30 points that goes... 10 points goes to a 3rd Michaelis, 10 points goes to a 3rd Pax, and then 10 points goes to the 2 Himes. So I'd actually be really, really happy to do that. This was the only card where I was like, you had to be a little bit more cautious of and like control it a little bit more. There's only like one duel where I was like, oh, I've run out of both my Exosystem Michaelises. I'm like, it would be really cool to have them. And then for the final Exosister, we've got 2 Magnifica. And then for the final generic cards, I just went with like number 104 Masquerade. So this is your 7th Tachyon reveal target. 1 Exton Knight, never made it, but it's just there for those emergency situations. 1 number 106 Giant Hand. I don't know why, it was just a generic rank 4 that I put in right at the last minute. And then finally a number F0 Utopic Future Zexil. Again, it's one of the ones that you can make, so it just requires 2 XYZs with the same rank. But honestly, I never made any of these cards. I would very easily just either work myself into an OTK of Magnifica, or if you're so cautious of Nibiru, the same route that you would go to make your Magnifica, you would just end on the Carmel plus the Michaelis, and then you would make the Jabrain anyway. And then Jabrain just bumped all of these, and you're like, okay, cool, this is enough. Like, these are, so it's 28 on Magnifica that gets to attack twice. These are 26 and 25. So when you make the Jabrain, because the idea is you'd usually get these 2 here, and you would overlay both of these and go into Magnifica, and then make Jabrain. Jabrain would then bump these all. But honestly, if you're worried about Nibiru, you kind of just sit there like this, and you go, you've got the exact same outcome. You've just got protection from Nibiru. And then you go attack, which would be 34. You go into 33, which is 67. And then you go in for 2-2, which is 89. So that's your OTK there. The only benefit of needing to make the Magnifica would be so you can get the Banish. And if you're so worried about Nibiru, you would have to go, you'd do this, use your brain to bump all XEs, but you'd only worry about the Carmel being bumped, and then you'd overlay both of these and go into Magnifica. And then you'd have 2 28s with a Banish, and if your opponent reacts to you, you then use the Magnifica to tag out, and then the Carmel. So, yeah, I was really happy with the deck. I think it's really, really fun. Definitely, it leans itself more to Genesys than it does Modern right now, just because of its accessibility to Dimension Shifter. But I do really like its Modern applications as well. Anyway, I've saved my OTS packs for the end now. We do get Genesys bonuses, but they don't come in until the end of the scheme, which is prize wall tickets and more OTS packs. So we got Picari Agnistar, Lunalight Fusion, and Yugioh. So I think 28 is actually quite a good one as a dog. You might have heard that in the background. 28 is quite a good one. Another Picari. Caribbean. Planet Pollution Virus, because 28 actually has Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is crazy expensive right now. So hopefully we get one of those. Heraldic Beast. Brain Control. Max Metamorph. The final pack of Destiny for now. Trying to be like really gentle. Usually you can tell from the back as well. Zaborg, the Mega Monarch, that's not a bad common to get. Chi-Chi and Lucius the Shadow Vassal. I mean, there's 4 super rares, I don't really mind that. Like I said, speaking to people, it's actually a lot of fun. I think a lot of people like, kind of disregard Genesys before actually playing it. And I think what Genesys allows is it allows, like I've used as the example, I had 2 friends come back to the game. Now, they did it just to socialise, just to be a bit of fun, but they've also been slightly tempted to be like, actually, it's quite nice. Because what they didn't like about Modern was there's a lot of hand interactions. There's like, okay, cool. Every hand interaction kind of stops the deck being built. Now, there are ways to do that still in Genesys, but it kind of opens itself up a little bit more. Like, Nibiru, you used to worry about Droll before the new points update. Now you need to probably consider and worry about Nibiru a little bit. But it means you don't need to worry about Nibiru, Impulse, Purge, Ash, Valar. The list goes on and on and on. Now you're like, right, okay, and maybe I need to worry about Fuelos. So if I don't want to worry about Fuelos, maybe I play Eldritch. But then I need to worry about DD Crow. So there's like these gives and takes of everything you need to kind of consider. But I think it's a really, really fun format. And it kind of changes it up a little bit and breaks it. I think the one thing that it's missing is it needs a bit more of a push. It needs a bit more push in support. Like, I quite like the prizing that they're getting right at the moment, which is the original Yu-Gi-Oh mat, which is like the original 2-zone mats and everything else in between. So it's going to be very interesting to see where it goes from here. I hope it does kick on. I feel that the best thing about it is like you can still get modern support. Like, you can still get modern OTS packs, which still like serve itself as decent prizes that you're happy to receive. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Local Experience. I'm going to keep on trying to do these for you all, just to kind of give you a different bit of content that's constantly weekly going, give you a bit of an insight, and there will be times where I won't be able to make it to local sometimes just because I'll either be working at a weekend or be doing something else, but I'll still try and bring you a form of locals experience. Maybe I'll try and follow other duel lists. Maybe I'll be like, right, okay, can I get a list from the winning duel list at the locals that I wasn't able to attend and get a bit of an interview and a bit of a breakdown and kind of work it that way. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.